I think many people believe, as I do, that the fundamental problem we face today is bigness. Big commercial developments, big kinds of road projects and shopping mall projects. But I do think that there is an antidote to bigness, and I turn to Professor Gary Larson for the first approximation of how to deal with this problem. I believe that most communities have been sold a bill of goods by contemporary economists, and that is that their salvation is for Toyota to move into the community and to become the new backbone of the economy. And there's several problems with that. One problem is that it leaves the community very vulnerable to decisions of the Toyota boardroom that are thousands or maybe tens of thousands of miles away. And as those decisions move further and further away from the community, you can be sure that they will not be made with attention to the social, economic, or political needs of the community. So everyone feels rather helpless. And my feeling is the more that we can create an economy that is rooted in locally owned businesses that leave us relatively self-reliant, the less vulnerable we are to all of these forces that are outside our control. When was this hardware store first built?
1870. And we have had 3 families. The first family were from 1870 to 1920s. The second family was from the 20s to 1960 when we bought the store in 1960. So we're the third family. And it has basically some of the things have remained the same. You know, the needs of people will always be sort of basic.
Will there be a 4th family that owns this?
Well, there is, yes. Our son, our youngest son, is running the shop now.
You're doing relatively well. And what's allowing you to succeed where others are not?
Well, our customer base is divided into the 4 groups, mainly area residents, the local businesses down here all buy and support us, and the visitors. We have a lot of visitors, and the boat people come. So with that 4 groups, not every little city has the advantage of those 4 groups. So if you're depending only from residents, then see the residents could drive to the big boxes and they don't need to support the little store. Historic Annapolis has helped a lot too in preserving this town. I must give them credit because the town looks lovely, and it's because of their efforts that the values of the town are the way they are. And we have preserved that wonderful colonial atmosphere. And it's nice, it's nice. Of course, the Naval Academy is a draw, and we're the capital of the state, so there's another draw. And it's gotten to be a very popular place to live. The real estate values will show you that, doubled and tripled in the area, because it is a lovely place to live. I feel very close to this town. We were both born in this town. It's a wonderful town.
And where do you see this store in 20 years?
I would hope it would still be a hardware store.
Yeah.
Because I don't think people's needs are going to change.
Yeah.
People will still be needing a rolling pin or a pound of nails, or basic supplies are not going to change. It's just, and as long as you treat people nice, they'll come back. So if you get customers that are used to coming, they'll stay, they'll come. I think we can survive, I really do. We get thanks every day for being here and for staying, because we're convenient for people and we try to have whatever anybody needs. We have a lot of specialty lines like the Aladdin lamps, which we've sold for 35 years. The light is equivalent to a 60-watt light bulb, so very few oil lamps give you that much light. No matter where you live, you can be without power for some short time or something. So these will light the whole room, or they're very nice. The door knockers are just little. And we're out of the main ones here with the blank spaces, and the main one is the marine door knocker. we have a time trying to keep those in supply. So there's just little niches that we sell that the big boxes don't sell. 5, 10, and 10 to 20. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think the community realizes what's happening, and they can see, you know, when the big boxes come, and yet it seems like there's no stopping them. There's no stopping the big boxes. No matter, we're going to get a Walmart on the other side of town. It's coming. So I don't know what that's going to do to all the other little places. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. Whether they will survive, I don't know. I don't know. I shouldn't maybe speak out like this, but I have felt since the Walmart started to develop that I read Sam Walton's book, and to start building those shops, he went through the small businesses' garbage so that he could see what they were selling, and then he built a store and he undercut their prices so that he could put them out of business. For this, he was given a presidential citation. And I'm thinking, where is the thinking behind this as far as America's concerned? You know? And they're going to kill all the small stores and subdue the free enterprise feeling for young people in America. Are there going to be young people to start their own business in America? I don't know.
One of the great ugly secrets about globalization is that it is heavily subsidized. We're talking tens of billions of dollars of subsidies a year. If you were simply to wipe out all these subsidies, which people on both the left and right want to do, it would lead to a revolution at the local level, because suddenly all of these local businesses, which are currently at a competitive disadvantage, would be able to compete successfully against the larger firms.
Everybody's a dreamer, but most people don't have a clue where to begin.
So what is your dream for this place?
It was to create a place where instead of televisions and music blasting, where conversation became a focus, where the art became a focus, and I have different artists every month, to help the wheels of the art community survive.
So this cafe is like a gathering place.
That was my intent. And I think, to my surprise, I mean, it's become everything I wanted it to be, you know? All the time I'm introducing people that live a block from each other and don't even know it. My parents sent me an article because they knew I was working on this, and it was from the Des Moines Register, and this was like 1996. At the time, I made 12 copies of it, gave it to every alderman. It was called Cloning of America, and it was an article about how McDonald's, Burger King, and Taco Bell had gone from like 1980, from like 15,000 establishments nationwide, to at this time, 1995, 35,000 establishments. How every town was beginning to look the same. So I used that argument that we shouldn't have Banana Republic, Gap, Starbucks, all these chains downtown, because we have people from all over the world come to visit this historic town in America. And they walk through our visitor center and they look to the right, now there's a McDonald's. They walk downtown, there's a Starbucks, there's a Gap, a Banana Republic. The same things they have in their hometown in France, maybe their hometown in Des Moines, Iowa, their hometown in California. Doesn't matter where you come from, they have all the same. So after I got that article, I got Carmel and Solvang, California zoning. But they don't allow any formula restaurants. And so I gave all this information to all the aldermen, and within a week, I was very impressed. Within a week, 5 of the 7 alder people had called or stopped in and said, "Brian, can I sit with you for a minute? I want to talk about this." But then it petered out, nothing happened. In a small town, if you want small businesses, the zoning office and the public works office are going to have to be a little more cooperative and understanding to the small business owners.
We bought a small liquor store from a fellow by the name of Billy Mills. That's how the name was retained all those years. He was in business since 1933, which was repeal. And my father came to visit him one day, and he said to Dad that he was 73 years old then, and he just married a woman 45. He says, "Why don't you buy me out? You and your son can go in business." I had just come out of the Navy after World War II. Well, my father looked at him and said, "Well, Billy, we don't have any money." He said, "That's fine. That'll be okay. A handshake and a promise to pay." And we were in business. How about that? Try that today. I don't think it would work. As time went on, I saw how people were getting excited about the wine. They were going to Europe, traveling after the war, and saw how the Europeans conducted themselves with wine and food. So the wine boom was on the horizon. So I quickly went to Europe and made contacts and started bringing wine from Europe into the store. Now it's 85% wine and 15% liquor, how things have turned around. But as time went on, we lost the flavor of a small town. We lost a grocery store. We lost a drugstore. We don't have those things here. And it's a little upsetting because there are lots of people who live around this area that need those services. The satisfactions that I get is the contact with the people and to do for them something that enhances their life, believe it or not. Like people will come in, "Oh, we're having a dinner party. I don't know what to buy, I don't know what to serve." So I ask them, "What is the food?" And I get the menu and I match the wine with the food. They come back and they say, "Nobody talked about my food, they only talked about your wine," which makes me feel very good. Because like my father always said, we sell happiness and joy. And I really believe that. But there's my father over there. I have a picture of him on the wall. Quite a guy, very special guy.
Whenever you choose to buy something from outside the community, rather than making it yourself, when you can make it yourself, you're hurting your economy. Then you also have a lower economic multiplier. As most of you are probably familiar with, the multiplier means that if I spend $1 at this concession stand here, and the person working at that concession stand gets $1 in salary and then spends it at a locally owned pharmacy down the road, and that person, the person working there spends the $1 at the filling station and so forth, the more that this dollar circulates within Anne Arundel County, the faster it circulates, the more wealth, jobs, and income there is in the economy.
I think pretty much anybody I ever talked to about solar is very interested in the technology. I think a lot of people really like the idea of just being able to produce their own power. There's growing awareness that these systems really represent the ultimate in sort of homemade, homegrown power, a very secure form of energy production, not subject to risks of centralized power plants or importing fuels or transporting fuels or nuclear. The fact is that these technologies are much more available than people think and much more affordable than people think. Did some training, I did lots of research. I started on my own home. I started on smaller systems for other people, such as boats or cabins or things like this. And then I just found very quickly that there were a lot of people out there that were really looking for something like this, but they really didn't know where to turn to. The panels themselves are considered the most reliable form of electrical generation that there is. There's no moving parts. They carry long warranties of 20 to 30 years. Their expected lifetime is much longer than that, 50 years. Even some studies suggest 100 years. So even if we take today's costs for power and we say that that's never going to change, which is unlikely, and then we compare it to what you're paying for this system and what it's going to produce, this system may end up costing a little bit more money, but that may end up costing $5 a month more or $10 a month more, than what you're paying right now for your own electricity. And when you compare that to other choices that people make in their lives, I like to compare it to maybe the cost of signing up for an internet subscription or a magazine subscription or something like that. I call this organic power because it's a little bit more expensive, but it's better for everybody's health. The fact is that once you buy a system like this, those costs are fixed. You know how much you've paid for it, and that's how much you're going to be paying over its lifetime for the energy that these panels are going to produce. I like my job a lot. It's been a busy year for me from the solar point of view. Not only are we producing power that's better for our environment, but we're producing it on our own houses, and we're not dependent upon anybody else to import this from, because the fact is that no one yet can control how much the sun shines or where that sunshine hits. And so far, they're not able to charge us for those photons.
I mean, around the country, we are seeing an explosion of initiatives undertaken by communities to promote stronger economies at the local level. And they fall into a bunch of different categories. I mean, we're seeing cities undertaking innovative kinds of studies in order, for example, to find out what are they depending on that's coming from outside the community, and how can they plug those leaks? How, for example, could they become more self-reliant on energy, more self-reliant on food? And what that means, of course, is building a local energy industry or a local food industry. We're seeing communities that are promoting local skill building. For example, they're setting up incubators for nonprofits, or in the case of AceNet in Ohio, setting up a community kitchen so that a bunch of food businesses that are just getting started have the ability to sort of have access to licensed kitchen facilities that enable them to do their production in a cost-effective way. We're seeing local purchasing being promoted through, for example, local money systems. The beauty of a local money system is that you have to be plugged in to the local economy to want to use it and to want to accept it. If you're not plugged into the local economy like Walmart, you would never accept a local currency. There are globally 2,500 local money systems right now, all of which are designed around communities trying to encourage local purchasing. Local investing is another approach. And we're seeing, even as on the one hand you see this kind of massive consolidation and merger of global banks, at the kind of grassroots level, there's also been a proliferation of community-based credit unions, community development financial institutions, community-friendly savings and loans, community-friendly commercial banks like South Shore. And these banks are places where you put your money in and you have high levels of confidence that the loans that come out of those savings are going to local economic development. Now, it turns out right now that $5 out of $6 that we have in savings does not go into banks. It goes into pensions, insurance funds, stocks, and bonds. And so it's becoming increasingly important that we find vehicles for local reinvestment of pension funds in our stock portfolios. And some cities are beginning to create these kinds of instruments. Last week I was in Hartford, and actually the entire area between Hartford and Brattleboro, Vermont is called the Pioneer Valley. And there is an investment company there that is trying to set up a regional stock market to encourage the buying and selling of securities of locally owned firms and to encourage local reinvestment in those firms.
And I believe the first step for folks to implement this is to start studying the local economy. There should be nothing too controversial about identifying local businesses that are locally owned, or import dependencies here, or the asset base here, or the subsidy base here. And I believe that you folks are well equipped to do that. You know, over the last few centuries, we've had many profound struggles. You know, in the 18th century, it was over democracy versus monarchy. 19th century, whether slavery was going to be an acceptable institution. The 20th century was a struggle over fundamental human rights. And I believe that this century, the 21st century, is a basic struggle over whether we believe in cheap goods in the next sale at a shopping mall or whether we believe in communities, families, and ecosystems. The choice is really up to us. And I believe that if we choose properly, it will make an enormous difference for the next generations. As Kenneth Boulding once said, "Cities of the world unite. You have nothing to lose but your slums, your poverty, and your military expendability." Thank you.
And one of the things that comes up over and over again in polling that has been done is that Americans of all income levels, and whether they're based in rural or suburbs or cities, they have a yearning for community. They want more connection with their neighbors. They want a more humanized kind of society. And I think that one of the ways that they're going to get that is by restructuring themselves into smaller community units. We then have the relationships out of which we can begin to build a stronger economy, a better society, a stronger political system.